My name is Avery. I'm a 62-year-old housewife. 2 years ago, my husband, who I had been married to for many years, passed away suddenly due to an illness. Now, I live a modest life, managing the inheritance he left me. I have 2 sons, both of whom are married. When my eldest son, Henry, got married, he and his wife offered to live with me. I told them, I appreciate your concern, but I'm still fit and fine on my own. I don't want to be a burden to you newlyweds. But Henry insisted, I can't bear the thought of you being alone. As the eldest son, it's my responsibility to take care of you. Please don't worry about being a nuisance. And so, we ended up living together. Henry's wife, Rhea, is very young, 9 years younger than Henry, only 23. At first, I worried if such a young girl could handle being a wife, but she was the one Henry chose. I found no reason to object to their marriage, so I accepted it. When we decided to live together, I asked Henry, is Rhea okay with living with me? Won't a young girl like her dislike living with an old woman like me? Henry reassured me, saying, it's fine. Rhea is kind. She'll get along with you. Besides, having you around will help us with the housework. He was adamant about us living together. I couldn't find a reason to object after hearing that. Sure, I'm getting on in years, and it's too late to start worrying when something happens. Thinking that it'd be more reassuring than living alone, I gratefully accepted Henry's proposal. After we had been living together for a while, there was a time when I asked Rhea, sorry to ask, but could you bring in the laundry? I'm going out to get groceries for dinner. Up until then, I hadn't often asked her for anything, but that day I had unavoidable errands to run before shopping, so I decided to ask her. However, Rhea retorted, why do I have to do it? I'm busy right now. You should bring it in before you go, shouldn't you? She seemed occupied playing a game on her smartphone. Even before that, she hadn't helped with any household chores, but I chose not to say anything out of consideration. However, seeing her just lying there playing her game that day, I said a bit more firmly, if it's just a game, you can play it later, right? Could you please help out a bit? Rhea, looking annoyed, grumbled, you're always nagging. Whoever's free should do the chores, right? You could bring it in before shopping. You're really annoying. With a glare at me, she went to the balcony to bring in the laundry. I was taken aback by her rudeness, but I thought it wouldn't do any good to say anything more and upset her further, so I left the house as it was. After that day, Rhea began to harass me. Ignoring me became a daily occurrence. When she didn't like the food I cooked, she would say to Henry, I can't eat this. Hey, let's go out and eat, just the two of us. And they would go out to eat, leaving me behind. Henry did try to consider my feelings, saying, think about Mom too. She went through all this trouble to cook. But when Rhea was in a bad mood, all he could do was say, sorry Mom, we're going to eat out today, and follow Rhea's orders. Rhea never did any housework, no matter how much I asked. Instead, she said, you're not working, right? Aren't you ashamed to rely on Henry for everything at your age? It's normal for you to do the chores, isn't it? She acted as if it was completely natural for me to do all the housework. Rhea accused me of not working, but she wasn't working either. She felt superior because she was supporting Henry, who was working. I hadn't told Rhea, but I wasn't unemployed. I had a little income from managing the apartment my husband left me. I also contributed to the household expenses, so I wasn't completely dependent on Henry. But Rhea seemed to think that because I wasn't working outside the home, I didn't have any income, and Henry was footing all the bills. Once, when I was cleaning, Rhea shouted at me, can't you clean a little quieter? That's noisy. I was just vacuuming normally, but Rhea was on a phone call and was complaining about me to the person on the other end, saying, hello, sorry about that. Yeah, it's Henry's mom. She's really noisy, isn't she? She should be able to do the housework quietly at this point. Even I was annoyed, and I told Henry about what had happened that day when he came home from work. You know, I'm not saying you have to do everything, but Rhea hasn't been helping at all with the housework. Not only that, but I got scolded just for vacuuming. It's normal to share chores, and I do my part, but I can't handle doing everything alone, especially when I get complaints, I told him. Henry replied, I'm sorry, I really am. I don't think Rhea means any harm. Maybe she was just in a bad mood today. I'll tell her to help out a bit more, so please cut her some slack today. But he didn't really take the matter seriously. Even so, I hoped that Henry would talk to Rhea, and I decided to watch how things unfolded without saying anything more. Half a year passed, and Rhea's attitude remained unchanged. She didn't even bother to pretend to help with the housework. I was utterly exhausted from managing all the chores for 3 people and constantly trying to accommodate Rhea. During this time, my second son, Lucas, happened to mention, "Mom, your birthday's coming up, right? Since Henry and Rhea will likely celebrate it on the day itself, why don't we celebrate it today? Renly also has a present for you, so let's go out for dinner." I accepted the invitation gladly. Lucas and his wife lived in an apartment about 30 minutes away from our house, so we didn't get to see each other often. Renly, Lucas's wife, was always kind and gentle, showing me a lot of care. When Lucas invited me, I replied without hesitation, "I'd love to, of course I'll go." That evening, after preparing dinner for Henry and Rhea, I joined Lucas and his family for dinner. They had reserved my favorite restaurant and surprised me with flowers and a gift bag for my birthday. It was a delightful evening, and I couldn't contain my happiness, saying, "Ah, this is so refreshing. It's been a long time since I've felt this happy." Moved by my words, Lucas asked, "Has something been bothering you with Henry? When you say it's been a while since you felt happy, it concerns me. Have things been tough for you lately?" Although I hadn't planned to complain, I explained that I was managing all the housework because Rhea wouldn't help, and how I had been scolded for being noisy and spoken to harshly. Lucas, exchanging glances with Renly, spoke up, "Mom, you don't have to endure this if it's difficult. You have income from the stocks and apartment rents Dad left behind, right? You're only staying with them because Henry wanted it that way. But if Rhea treats you badly and Henry doesn't support you, you shouldn't have to live like this. If it's hard for you to say it, I'll intervene." Renly added, "If you feel lonely living alone, we can live together. I love you very much, so please don't hesitate." Their words moved me deeply, and I felt tears welling up. I expressed my gratitude and decided to persevere a little longer, reassured by their support. "Thank you, but I'll keep trying. They're my precious family after all. I truly want to find harmony with Rhea," I replied. Returning home that night, I noticed the dishes they had used were still in the sink. With a sigh, I began to clean up but stopped myself, thinking, I always do this. It's only fair they do it tomorrow morning. So, I left the dishes as they were and retired to bed. The next morning, as I prepared breakfast, Rhea came into the kitchen. While cooking, I greeted her, "Good morning, Rhea. I'll handle breakfast. Could you please wash the dishes from yesterday?" Rhea ignored my request and instead settled on the couch, engrossed in her smartphone. Frustration bubbled up within me at her dismissive attitude, and I couldn't help but raise my voice. "It's basic courtesy to clean up after yourself." In her usual manner, Rhea retorted, "I've told you countless times, isn't that your job, mom-in-law? You know the saying, 'He who does not work, neither shall he eat.' You eat every day, so you should do the housework." Henry hurried into the room upon hearing our exchange, looking concerned. "What's going on so early in the morning? Are you two arguing?" he asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. With a sigh, I explained to Henry, "I simply asked Rhea to wash the dishes from yesterday. I was just stating the obvious." Upon hearing my reply, Henry muttered, "Seriously, this early?" and headed to wash his face, clearly irritated. But I couldn't hold back any longer and snapped, "It's not just about this morning. Every single day, I'm the one doing all the housework. Everything, including yours. Do you realize how exhausting that is? At the very least, you could wash your own dishes." My outburst, rare for me, startled Henry. "I'm sorry, I'll take care of it," he said hastily, moving to start on the dishes. However, Rhea interjected, "Why should Henry, who works outside, have to do that? You depend on Henry, so it's your responsibility, mom-in-law." She stopped Henry's hands, clearly dissatisfied with the idea of him doing chores. Then she turned to me and said, "You're living off a pension like a pauper, causing trouble. Get out of this apartment." That was the last straw for me. Why should I leave my own home? This house is in my name, I retorted to Rhea. Turning to Henry, I confessed my true feelings. "Rhea seems to have it all wrong, but you understand, Henry. It's you two who should leave. I can't bear living together anymore. I've reached my limit." Rhea looked visibly surprised and asked, "What do you mean? How can a jobless mother-in-law own a house? Aren't you relying on Henry?" I clarified, "I am the landlord of this apartment. I don't rent. This apartment belongs to me. When Henry's father passed away, he left me stocks, apartments, and land. I manage these assets and generate enough income to support myself. I've never depended on Henry financially. Even after we started living together, I cover most of the utilities and food expenses. Rhea was speechless, turning to Henry for confirmation. So we've been living without spending much money, she queried. Henry simply nodded in response. I chimed in. While Henry may have wanted to provide for you, Rhea, he couldn't possibly manage all aspects of my financial life, taking you out to eat, shopping, and such. Henry himself isn't earning that much yet. At that moment, Rhea seemed to grasp the seriousness of the situation. Her demeanor changed, her face paling as she said, I'm sorry, mother-in-law. I didn't realize, and I've been disrespectful. Please forgive me. Realizing that her comfortable living arrangement could be at risk if we parted ways, Rhea continued to apologize repeatedly in a flustered manner. Understanding their realization, I reassured them, I'm not saying I will forgive you. We're family after all. But continuing to live together isn't feasible. We need to address this. You both should find a place to rent and live on your own. Henry reacted urgently to my suggestion. I worry about you, Mom. From now on, Rhea and I will pitch in with the housework. I just don't want you to be alone. However, I reassured him, I'll be fine. If you're that concerned, I can stay with Lucas and his family. They offered when we went out for dinner recently, knowing I might be uneasy about living alone. Initially, I wanted to give it more time living with you two, but now I see it's not feasible. It might inconvenience Lucas, but I'll be closer to them. Henry seemed to grasp my resolve, simply saying, I understand, without further comment. In contrast, Rhea retorted, so you're abandoning us even though we've been taking care of you. Her tone blamed me. Recognizing arguing would be fruitless, I chose not to respond. Within a month, Henry and Rhea secured a new place and moved out. Given their budget, they could only afford an older, smaller apartment. Rhea, who had never worked previously, reportedly took up a part-time job to make ends meet. Henry confided that Rhea frequently complained about managing household chores and her job. Their life seemed fraught with continuous arguments, and Henry appeared utterly exhausted. Henry continued to reach out, pleading, if only you would forgive us, we want to live together again. Yet I have firmly decided not to revisit that chapter of my life. After Henry and Rhea moved out, I relocated to Lucas's home. Despite my insistence that they needed to accommodate me, Lucas expressed, having you here really helps, Mom. Renly also wants you to stay. She's eager to learn your cooking. Thus, we made the decision to live together. Since then, Lucas and Renly have assured me, feel free to speak up if something bothers you. We'll manage chores together, ensuring we don't inconvenience each other. Nowadays, I spend my time cooking alongside Renly, pursuing my hobbies, and simply enjoying a fulfilling life. I am genuinely content. Going forward, I strive to maintain this happiness without compromise.